The waiter stopped beside our table and set the folder down between the bread basket and the water glasses. No one reached for it. My son did not look at the total. He looked at me. "You've got it, Mom," he said, already smiling. "You earn more." Across from him, his wife let out a quiet laugh that was meant to sound harmless. "Might as well," she said. "It's what you're good at." My son's smile widened. It was not warm. It was practiced. The waiter cleared his throat. "Whenever you're ready," he said, then stepped back, as if he already knew how this would go. Someone leaned in from my left. I did not turn my head, but I heard it clearly. Finally, useful. The word useful landed heavier than the folder. My son heard it. He did not correct it. He did not pretend he hadn't. He reached for his glass. "We ordered a lot," he said, casual. "But you don't mind. You're comfortable." I looked at the folder. $1,847. The number sat there neat and final, waiting for permission. My sister shifted in her chair. "It's easier this way," she said. "No splitting, no awkward math." "Right," my son added. "Why complicate it?" The waiter glanced at me, then away again. He had learned not to interrupt moments like this. I slid my card out of my wallet and placed it inside the folder. My son exhaled, relieved, as if a tension he had never acknowledged had finally resolved itself. "Thanks, Mom," he said. "See, simple." The waiter returned. He placed the receipt in front of me with a pen. I signed my name, slowly folded the paper, and handed it back. I pushed my chair away from the table. My son frowned. "Where are you going?" I stood. My hands were steady. "I'm done," I said. His wife laughed again, sharper this time. "Done with what?" "With this," I said. "With being assigned." My son's smile fell. "Don't make a scene. I already paid," I said. The scene was decided before the check arrived. The table went quiet. No one reached for their coat. No one spoke. I looked at my son. Let me explain why this moment took 71 years. I did not sit back down. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Shadow Channel team based on real-life situations to convey lessons about family emotions and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. What does a lifetime of being reliable cost you? After my husband died, no one asked how I planned to manage. They assumed I would. That assumption followed me everywhere. At the funeral, at the bank, at family dinners that quietly turned into planning meetings. I learned early that grief did not excuse responsibility. Someone still had to sign forms. Someone still had to show up. I did not move in with anyone. I did not ask for help. I sorted paperwork, closed accounts, learned what silence sounded like when the house stayed quiet for too long. I went back to work because bills did not pause for mourning. I learned to be efficient with my feelings the same way I was with money. My son liked to tell people I was good like that. Independent. Practical. He said it with pride, usually when someone suggested helping me with something. The suggestion never lasted long. "Mom's fine," he would say. "She can handle it." And I could. I always did. That was the problem. When relatives ran short, my name surfaced without discussion. When something needed covering, bridging, smoothing over it landed in my lap like a natural conclusion. I did not announce my help. I simply stepped in. Over time, no one remembered asking. They remembered expecting. I built stability the slow way. No windfalls, no lucky breaks, just decades of saying no to myself so I could say yes when it mattered. The house was paid for. The savings were steady, not impressive, dependable. At gatherings, people smiled when they saw me. The smile carried relief. Someone had arrived who would make sure things didn't fall apart. "You're strong," my sister liked to say when she handed me something to solve. Strong, capable, reliable. Those words sounded like praise. I accepted them as such for years. Only later did I understand what they really meant. Strength in my family was not admiration. It was clearance. If I could handle it, then I should. If I did not complain, then it must be fine. And if I was always fine, then nothing I gave ever counted as a loss. My son had not always looked at me that way. There was a time when he thanked me for small things, for rides, for help with paperwork, for meals I packed without being asked. Gratitude came easily then. It sounded natural. It sounded like him. Somewhere along the way, the words changed. At family gatherings, someone would gesture toward me and say, "Your mother doesn't need anything. She's set." The comment always landed lightly, followed by a nod, as if this were a comfort. My son absorbed those moments quietly. He did not argue. He did not correct them. When I paid for something, an uncle would chuckle. "See, she's fine." When I waved it off, an aunt would smile. "You know she likes to help." My son watched. He learned. The thank yous thinned out. They were replaced by assumptions. Plans were made without checking. Decisions were explained instead of discussed. If I hesitated, the room would shift. "You're not struggling," he once said, almost confused. "Why would this bother you?" It was said without cruelty. That made it worse. When I mentioned being tired, he waved it away. "You've always handled more than this." When I said something was expensive, he shrugged. "For you, maybe not." Others reinforced it for him. "Your mother's smart with money. She planned well. She doesn't need it the way you do." Need became the dividing line. On one side, everyone else. On the other, me. By the time the smile appeared at dinner, it was familiar to him. Comfortable. A smile shaped by years of watching people step back once I stepped forward. He did not invent it on the spot. He reached for it the way one reaches for something practiced. A look that said this had already been decided. I understood then that the smile was not confidence. It was confirmation. He had been taught that what I gave was not generosity. It was availability. The invitation came from my son, cheerful and casual, framed as a favor to me. "We're all getting together," he said. "You've been busy. You deserve a night out." He named the restaurant without hesitation. It was not a place we went. It was a place people chose when someone else was paying. My sister forwarded the message to 2 cousins. "Since we're already there," she added. No one asked if that was all right. The list grew the way it always did, quietly, confidently. At the table, menus opened wide. Someone ordered the special before the waiter finished explaining it. Another asked about the wine list and waved away the first suggestion. Plates were chosen with certainty, not care. "You should try this," my son said, pointing across the table. "It's excellent." He did not look at the price. He did not need to. The waiter paused. "Would you like to hear about the larger cuts?" "Sure," my sister said. "We're celebrating." "What are we celebrating?" I asked. My son smiled. "Being together." A cousin leaned over. "Don't worry," she said softly. "It'll work itself out." The phrase landed with familiarity. It always worked itself out because I did. As the orders stacked, no one checked a number. No one hesitated. Glasses were refilled before they were empty. When someone mentioned dessert, there was laughter, the easy kind that assumes permission. "Go ahead," my son said. "We don't do this often." He said it as if it were true. The waiter gathered menus and nodded. "I'll get this started." The table settled into conversation that moved around me, not with me. Plans were made for after dinner. Someone suggested coffee elsewhere. My name came up only when the logistics needed smoothing. I sat there listening, understanding the shape of the evening as it revealed itself. This was not generosity being tested. It was expectation being exercised. By the time the plates arrived, the decision had already been made, just not by me. The comment reached me from the side quiet enough to pretend it was a joke. Finally, useful. It was said with a smile meant to soften it, as if tone could erase meaning. I did not turn my head. I did not need to. I knew exactly who it came from. More important, I knew who heard it. My son's eyes flicked in my direction. Not in surprise, not in correction. He took a sip of water and set the glass down carefully, like someone closing a door without making noise. Across the table, his wife leaned closer to him. "You see," she murmured, "everything works out." He nodded once. Agreement without words. The conversation moved on. Someone asked about dessert. Someone else joked about how generous portions were these days. The table absorbed the moment and carried on, practiced at swallowing things that made me smaller. I felt it then, sharp and unmistakable. Not anger. Not embarrassment. Recognition. Useful. Not loved, not appreciated. Useful. I had paid for school trips and emergency flights. I had covered shortfalls without being asked to explain why they existed. I had stepped in before problems became public, before pride was bruised. Each time I told myself it was about easing stress, about helping family. Listening to that word, I understood the exchange had been recorded differently on the other side. My son leaned back in his chair. "Relax," he said lightly. No one meant anything by it. No one corrected it. No one apologized. The absence filled the space louder than any protest. I pressed my napkin flat against the table. The fabric stayed smooth. My hands did not shake. That surprised me. The waiter approached with practiced timing eyes on the edge of the table where the folder would soon appear. My son straightened, anticipation settling into his posture. I watched him prepare to receive what he believed was owed. The rupture was quiet. It did not announce itself. It settled in rearranging everything I thought I understood. The insult had never been about money. It had always been about worth. Why would someone pay when they've already decided to stop? The folder arrived where it always did, placed carefully within my reach. The waiter did not announce the total. He did not need to. The number sat inside, waiting to be acknowledged. My son leaned back, shoulders loosening. The tension around the table dissolved the way it always did at this point. Relief spread quietly, person to person, like permission being granted. "There we go," my sister said. "No stress." His wife smiled at me. "We knew you'd handle it." I let the silence stretch. Long enough for them to notice. Not long enough for anyone to interrupt. I opened the folder and looked at the total again. $1,847. Neat. Final. My son cleared his throat. "You don't have to make it weird." I reached into my purse and slid my card forward. The shift was immediate. Shoulders dropped. Someone laughed. A glass clinked against another in a soft, celebratory sound. "Thank you, Mom," my son said. He said it like closure. The waiter returned, efficient and quiet. He placed the receipt in front of me and set the pen down beside it. I signed my name without rushing. Folded the paper once. Twice. Handed it back. Conversation resumed around me, lighter now. Plans for coffee. A joke about how full everyone was. Someone mentioned how nice it was not to argue over money. I pushed the chair back just enough for the legs to scrape softly against the floor. My son looked up. "What are you doing?" I stood. The table stilled again, slower this time. Confusion replaced comfort. I did not explain. I did not justify. Paying had done its work. It had closed the expectation. It had given them what they believed was owed. What came next did not belong to them. I held my purse at my side and met my son's eyes. There was no anger in me, no apology either. The punctuation had been placed. I stood without pushing the chair back first. It tipped slightly, the sound sharp enough to cut through the conversation. My son stared at me. "Sit down." I remained where I was. "No." His wife glanced around the table, already embarrassed. "You're making this uncomfortable." "It was uncomfortable before I stood," I said. My voice was even. That seemed to bother them more than shouting would have. My sister reached for her glass. "You've always handled these things. Why change now? I'm not handling this anymore." My son's jaw tightened. You paid. What else do you want? I want this to be the last time. The words landed and stayed there. No one laughed. No one pretended not to understand. Don't be dramatic, he said. We're family. I know, I said. That's why this stops. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. You're embarrassing me. I met his eyes. You were comfortable embarrassing me. His wife crossed her arms. So what you're done helping, I'm done being assigned. Silence spread across the table, thick and unhelpful. Plates sat half-finished. Someone shifted in their seat and then stopped as if movement might make things worse. My son shook his head slowly. You don't get to decide this in public. I didn't decide it here, I said. You did. When you assumed. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The calm in my chest held. It did not waver. I did not reach for softness to make this easier for them. I'm leaving, I said. You can stay. No one told me to sit. No one apologized. The absence was complete. I picked up my coat and stepped away from the table. The waiter looked at me uncertain. I nodded once, a small acknowledgement of the work already done. Behind me, chairs scraped. Voices rose sharp with panic, now not anger. I walked out without looking back. Why does setting a boundary feel like committing a crime? My phone started ringing before I reached the car. You humiliated us, my sister said when I answered. No greeting, no pause. In front of everyone. I said nothing. My son left a message next. His voice was tight. You didn't have to do that. You made me look small. Another call came through while his message was still playing. I let it go to voicemail. My sister again. People noticed. They're asking questions. My son's wife sent a text. We didn't expect this from you. Not one message asked if I was all right. Not one mentioned the word useful. Not one acknowledged the assumption that had carried them through the evening. My sister called back. You could have handled this privately. I did, I said. For years. That's not what I meant, she snapped. You know what this does to us. To us? The phrase hung there. My son finally called again. You paid. Why couldn't you just leave it at that? Because paying wasn't the problem. He exhaled sharply. So now what? You're cutting us off, I'm stepping back. That's the same thing he said. The calls stacked up. Cousins. An aunt who had not spoken to me in months. Family doesn't do this, she said. Not over money. This wasn't about money, I said, and ended the call. The silence that followed was brief. Panic rushed in to fill it. Who's going to cover Sunday? My sister asked in a message. My son wrote, We need to talk. Need replaced want. Expectations searched for a new opening. I put the phone face down on the seat beside me and started the car. The noise faded. The outrage did not sound wounded. It sounded unsettled. Something essential had vanished and they felt it immediately. What happens when people have to pay for themselves again? We met a few weeks later at a smaller place. No one said why it was smaller. The invitation came without enthusiasm, like a test neither side wanted to name. Conversation stayed careful. Updates delivered without detail. My son talked about work. His wife nodded along. No one mentioned the dinner. No one mentioned me paying for anything. When the waiter returned and set the folders down, there was a pause so complete it felt deliberate. My sister glanced at my son. He stared at the table. His wife picked at the edge of her napkin. The waiter looked at me, then hesitated. Habit dies slowly. Separate checks. I said, already smiling. The words landed without drama. No tremor. No apology. My son blinked. Oh. His wife shifted in her chair. I thought I didn't, I said gently. The waiter nodded once and gathered the folders back up. He moved quickly after that, relieved to have clarity. My sister exhaled. Well, she said, forcing a laugh, that's new. It's accurate, I said. My son reached for his wallet. The movement was stiff, unfamiliar. He opened it, closed it, then opened it again as if confirming it still worked. "Guess we're doing this now," he muttered. His wife leaned in. "Did you bring your card?" "I did," he said. "I always do." The checks returned. Numbers were read. A quiet recalculation passed across faces that had not practiced it in a while. No one collapsed. No one argued with the waiter. Plates were paid for. Tips were added. The night continued. When my son finished signing his receipt, he looked up at me. Not angry, not smiling, just uncertain. I met his eyes and lifted my glass slightly. Not in triumph, in acknowledgement. The room adjusted. The balance shifted. What had been framed as impossible revealed itself as unused. We finished dinner. Everyone stood. Everyone left on their own terms. So did I. My place is smaller now. That was the first thing my sister noticed when she came by unannounced. "You downsized," she said, standing just inside the doorway. "I chose quieter," I said. She nodded as if those were the same thing. "It suits you." We sat at the table that fits four only if everyone is careful. She waited for me to offer coffee. I did not. After a moment, she stood and poured it herself, eyes flicking to me, then away. My son called later that week. He spoke carefully, like someone testing unfamiliar ground. "We're thinking of doing dinner on Sunday." "I'm free," I said. A pause. "We'll handle it." I know. At the restaurant, no one slid anything toward me. When the bill arrived, it stayed where it was placed. My son picked it up. His wife watched him do it. The movement was unremarkable. That was the point. "You okay with this?" he asked, not looking up. "I've always been okay," I said. "I just stopped proving it." He nodded once. Not agreement, acceptance. We still see each other, birthdays, holidays. Conversations stay lighter now, not because we avoid truth, but because it no longer needs defending. Help is offered with words instead of expectations. When I say no, it lands without argument. "You seem different," my sister said one afternoon. I said. "I'm accurate." She smiled at that, unsure whether it was a compliment. "I pay for my life. They pay for theirs. No one pretends otherwise. When I leave a table now, it's because I'm finished eating, not because I'm finished being useful." I walk out without checking who noticed. The quiet follows me home. This was lovely. Also, it was necessary.